Alright, so right off the bat, show of hands. How many of you actually use FTT? Okay, yeah, there's no half hands. It's either up or down. And then, what's that? Oh, okay. Well, how many of you have a license for FTT? You do. One license. Okay. I found out last night that my license is expired, so. But I can show you the free version. And what I really want to focus on is the difference between Flash Builder, who uses Flash Builder, everyone, or IntelliJ, who uses IntelliJ. A couple of them, okay? Because honestly, FTT's got some powerful tools, but it's very similar to Flash Builder in a way that it's based on clips. So going from Flash Builder to FTT is not that big of an issue. Learning about FTT, you'll get used to it. The thing is both of those IDEs are based on clips. That being said, I'm going to put this down a little bit because it's too loud. Can you hear me okay? So, yeah. So I'm Heider, Apache Flex committer and PMC member. I work for IntelliJ Idea. We specialize in video solutions mostly, but we're app developers and infrastructure developers. And I spend some time working with Apache Flex applications. I've spent a lot of time working with Apache Flex applications. If you do any stalking, you'll notice that I've given a bunch of talks on Flash Builder itself. So I'm very, very familiar with Flash Builder. Primary interests are making apps rock, both on Android and iOS, and also mentoring and teaching. I teach an Adobe Air class at the University of Denver. So I like to, spread whatever tiny bits of knowledge I have to other people, and hopefully in a very concise and clear way. I do speak and write, and how many of you have worked with Flex 3? I was on a team of 8 authors, and I helped write the largest Flex 3 book that exists. I think it was like 1,500 pages long. So it's pretty funny. So just historical perspective. My email address and my Twitter handle are at the bottom. So Om and I are doing a series. If you guys are at all interested in mobile development, anybody not do mobile development with Apache Flex yet? Okay, good number of you. All right, so if you're interested in that, hopefully you've been coming to the session in the lab yesterday, and my session today, and Om's lab later today. Om's going to teach you all about basically testing and debugging actually on the device, and doing that across the users that are going to be involved with using the app. So gathering feedback and things like that. So that would be a really good session to check out. The main thing is why are we doing this? It's because Air is a nice cross-platform way to reuse our code. And the Adobe Air runtime is actually pretty performant, so that's also good. And we can build things quickly. There's been 1 billion installs. We keep hearing this number, 1 billion. The one thing that I want you to pay particular attention to is Air 3.8 and higher. So we're not even counting any of the Air installs that happened before that runtime came out. So it's more than 1 billion. So it's out there, and it's a good platform to use. And hopefully Adobe, keeps the same head and keeps distributing the runtime. And working on the runtime as well. If you have any ideas okay, I'm going to build a mobile app, and you want some ideas on, well, what can I do? Check out the showcase. And then also Twitter Flex. You have a question?
If the Flash player doesn't run on mobile, I'm not sure how the Air makes the Flex application work.
Okay, yeah, so that's a good question. So the question is, well, I heard that Android no longer has Flash Player support. You gotta hack it in if you actually want to use Flash Player. And then, of course, iOS has never had Flash Player support. So how does Air work on these devices? And it's because it's a runtime that packages the Flash Player. So what they do is they basically think of it as they built an application for Android that is the Air runtime. So it's Flash Player, and then it's got all the libraries that allow Flash Player to run outside of the browser. On iOS, it works a little bit differently. So on iOS, what they have to do is they actually have to cross-compile and include the Air stuff into the application so that it will run on iOS. So Flash Player and Air are even though at the core they're the same thing, they're kind of different. Air enables Flash Player to run outside of the browser. Does that help? Cool. So what do we use to build? Because we're developers and we want to be productive. We don't want to use text edit. We don't want to use Notepad. We don't want to use DI. Definitely not DI. If you do, that's cool. Props. But no, we don't want to use that. There's three primary options out there. Most of us are using Flash Builder. And that's fair, because Flash Builder, was built by the company that built all of these technologies. And it's pretty rock solid. It's been out for a while. But there are two competitors that are pretty rock solid as well. First one is IntelliJ. The thing to note with IntelliJ is if you want to do your Air development with IntelliJ, you need to make sure that you have the Ultimate Edition. The standard edition of IntelliJ lets you do mobile development, but only Android development. And that has nothing to do with Air development for Android. And then there's PowerFlash or FTT. And most recently, FTT used to be kind of a perpetual subscription. So you would buy a version of the software, and then the next time they have a release, you upgrade. Well, they've moved to a subscription model in a similar fashion that Adobe has, created Creative Cloud. The core differences, I guess, are, and free will actually let you do development, so you can start playing around with FTT. FTT is free. And that's what we're going to see today, because my license expired and I didn't realize it. The other two require a buy-in outside of that trial period. And if you look at the buy-in, Flash Builder is the most expensive if you want premium features. Okay, $700. Standard, $250. IntelliJ Idea, $199 if you're an individual, but if you're a corporation, you need to buy an actual company license for each of your developments. So it's still not too bad. I mean, consider this. Yes? I need to keep my eye out for it. Do you have a Twitter feed where you're going to post when they have a discount off? Awesome. So yeah, keep that in mind. If you're really looking into IntelliJ, from time to time they have $99 versions that you can buy. And quite honestly, yeah, this kind of middle road, it feels middle road for me pricing-wise. Because subscribe. And the thing about FTT is to subscribe, it can be cheaper than that, but then you have to commit. I'm going to subscribe for 24 months, or I'm going to subscribe for 6 months. So I don't really like the subscription model that much. Anyway, so those are your two choices. Sublime Text. You could use Sublime Text, but we're going to talk about the features that are going to make you want to use an IDE versus Sublime Text, or VI, or text edit. If you're cool doing all your stuff in the command line, sure, why not? But honestly, these IDEs have a lot built in that are going to make you productive, and are going to help you out. And people like me that don't like to memorize a lot of things, have the core knowledge, but don't necessarily memorize the language reference by heart, IDEs really help in those cases. So here's some thoughts on features. And the way that I want to kind of go about this is we're going to cover some of the thoughts. And then in each of the IDEs, we're going to build a little hello world and play around with it, so that you can kind of get a feel for how that IDE operates. So first off, project. How do I set up my project? And once I do, what is the structure of the project? Where can I find my files? Then also, this actually, how many of you use version control? Hopefully everybody raises their hand. And if you don't, that's okay. That's okay. But here's the thing, as a mentor and as a teacher, I have people that need to get my projects without actually being in a repo, because they don't quite understand, version control yet. So I need the ability to export a zip file or export an FXP. So that is a consideration. And I'll tell you this much right now, because we may not get a chance to play around with that. I haven't really found a really good way to share IntelliJ projects unless you're using those. So that's just, if that's not a consideration, don't worry about it. If you're on a development team and you guys are all using Git or all using SVN, don't worry about it. But I just wanted to call that out. The nice thing, though, as far as import is concerned, IntelliJ does have the ability to take an FXP or Flash Builder project and import that into the IntelliJ format. And basically, it just creates other metadata files. So you can actually, have the Flash Builder files side by side with the IntelliJ files in there, and it's happy. It's good. This one's a very important one. And this is something that, using Sublime Text and command line compile may not really help you out with. It's multiple SDK support. It was a big deal when they added multiple SDK support to Flash Builder. It was awesome. It was like one of the coolest features ever. Because as an Air developer, I may have a number of apps out in the wild. And certain apps may need to be on a certain version of the runtime. So I need to be able to switch back and forth and specify that a particular project needs to be, like, say, on Air 3.2 or whatever. So having the ability to switch back and forth is a very powerful feature. And yeah, so we were talking the enterprise roadmap yesterday. And there's a lot of enterprises out there that are still using Adobe Flex 4.6 SDK. But now we got new stuff. We want to use the Apache Flex because that's where all the bug fixes are happening and all the new features are being built. So multiple SDK support is definitely very powerful. I like this documentation and hinting. So as I'm developing, what was that method name? What was that property name? I don't remember. Control-Shift, or I'm not sure the Windows come on that. So. But you have some kind of keyword shortcut, and there's also an activation period, right? If I put dot, or if I put open, bracket, or less than sign, it's going to pop up, and it's going to say, hey, what do you want to type? And you start typing, and once you find out what you want, you hit enter, and there you go, you're off to the races. You don't get that in Sublime Text. You don't get that in React. So that's a very powerful feature. And the other thing too is being able to have documentation inline as you're coding. Right? So I'm typing out this method call, and I don't quite remember the arguments that I want to pass into the method. Oh, shoot. What was that? So having that inline while you're coding is very powerful. Formatting and templates. So formatting and templates. One is code formatting. The other one is being able to templatize various things that you need to put into your application, such as an MXML component, or an ActionScript class, or a for loop. Having the ability to have templates for that is awesome, especially when you're on a development team working for a large company. Everybody writes their code differently. And having the ability to say, actually, just use the template activation and that'll throw down the function in the exact code standard that we need. So being able to customize that is also a powerful thing. And then the other thing is you can actually run, all right, I've created my class and I wanted to do it fast in the way that I type naturally. I want it to reformat for me. So having those kinds of features are helpful as well. Run versus debug. There's a question that came up yesterday in my lab. Hey, is there a good step debugger? Because a step debugger is a developer's best friend. Why, when I click on this button, is this stupid method not firing? What's going on? Having a step debugger, or hey, this method just executed, but it was supposed to populate this list. Why didn't it do that? So being able to like suspend your application and step through the code line by line, or even jump into functions that are being called to see the state of any of the variables within that scope. That's a very powerful feature. And then in the other room, they're talking about Adobe Scout. So having the ability to add advanced telemetry for Adobe Scout is cool. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to use Scout to profile your application, you have to enable advanced telemetry to get any like data that's worthwhile. You know, there is basic telemetry which will tell you like, okay, well, it's taking up this much memory and blah, blah, blah. But if you want to really get nitty gritty and find like memory usage for objects, you know, find out performance of methods, like how long they took to run, you got to enable advanced telemetry. How many of you use Scout? Good number of you. Scout is awesome. How many of you use the Flash Builder profile? It's not so awesome. I loved it when it came out. I really loved it when I saw it at Adobe Max, when they were still kind of, hey, check out what we're thinking of doing, because it was awesome there. And then in Flash Builder, it's kind of, but I did love the fact that they added it. Because, you know, having the ability to profile your application, you know, just gives you a chance to introspect and see what's happening in runtime and where it can optimize. So, very, very important for us mobile developers. Mobile settings. Otherwise, I got to configure a bunch of stuff manually. All these like XML files, and then when I export, you know, my application, or sorry, build my application for a device. Is that ADT command that I need to use? So making that easy is something to say for an IDE. First off, like what configuration options do I have right off the bat without having to go manually modify a file? How do I debug on the device? What kind of support is there? Oh yeah, I'm on Android, and I've decided that I don't want to depend on the end user having the Adobe Air runtime on their mobile device. So I'm going to use captive runtime so that my app doesn't depend on their version of the runtime. So how's that supported? Fast packaging for iOS. Oh, yeah, so I just want to check to make sure this change that I made to this method that happens when I click the button is going to be okay. I don't want to wait 30 minutes for my iOS application to cross-compile just so that I can run it on my device. So fast packaging is kind of like a halfway point where it doesn't actually get cross-compiled, it's interpreted while it's running on the iOS device. So it's halfway point. So what kind of support is that? And then finally, native extensions. I've decided I wanted to use these features that the Adobe Air APIs don't allow for right off the bat. So possibly like a device vibration, or there's also like, you know, integrated like the share menu for Android, like there's a native extension for that, or push notifications or whatever. So what kind of support do we have there? That being said, let's hello world. So most of you use Flash Builder, so we're just going to set up a project real quick. Just so that we can compare and contrast. So I have Flash Builder open here, Flash Builder 4.7 Premium. And I'm going to say, you know what, I want a mobile project. And I'm going to say, hello, FB. So with Flash Builder, it's based on Eclipse. And the way that Eclipse thinks is when I open Eclipse, i.e. Flash Builder, it's going to ask me to specify a workspace. And you can think of a workspace as a folder where all your various mobile projects exist. So I'm in a workspace right now, and I can see that at the top. Users, Heider Desktop, 360 Flex, FB Workspace. Inside that workspace, I'm going to create this project. That's very important when we go look at IntelliJ. Okay? We have workspace, we have project. So multiple SDK support. You know, I can go and say, I don't want to use Flex 4.6. So I'm just going to add in these support for the Apache Flex SDK. And I'm going to add in support for Air 13, Flash Player 13. So the thing about Air SDK is it overlays the Flash SDK, and each SDK is specified to target a specific version of the player. So I'm going to add that in there, and I'm going to say no. And if you notice, Flash Builder tells you, hey, this is the version of Air that we're going to support with this SDK. Yeah, I don't want to use that because now I have support for Flash Player 13 and Air 13. I haven't actually used this with Flash Builder because I've been using IntelliJ Idea, so hopefully this doesn't blow up. The really cool thing as a mobile developer is right off the bat, it gives you 3 different options on what kind of application shell you want. Do you want just a straight up application, or do you want the view navigator application, or do you want the tab view navigator application? Cool. So you know what? I'm just going to go with this one. I'm just say blank. Say full screen. So here we have some device features. Hey, do we want to scale? No. Actually, yes. And I'm going to go with 320. And if you notice, the Apache Flex team has added support for additional densities recently. One is 120, and then what are the other 2?
480 and 640.
So 480 and 640 to support some of these newer devices that are coming out. So as you notice, being that nobody's really working on Flash Builder anymore, we have that one, 3 of them. The ones that existed when Flex 4.6 came out. So I'm going to go 320 because I got my Nexus phone and girlfriend has her iPhone. This be, remote data, so application servers. We're going to just kind of skip that for now. I don't really like the stuff that Flash Builder generates for me to talk to services. It's really, really convoluted. And then here, Owen has mentioned that a really good design pattern to use with project structure is to have a shell. So I'm going to have like an iOS shell project, or I'm going to have an Android shell project. And I want them to be able to share code. So then you have your shell project, which is the application, but then you create a library. So library project to have all the core code that both of those applications share. So this allows you to say, hey, I have another project that I'm going to add in as a dependency, or hey, I want to add a folder for Swix, or I want to add a Swix, or whatever. So this will give you a chance to do that. Just because you don't do it here doesn't mean you can't do it later. It's just a convenience feature when you're setting up your project. The other thing, if you notice, is up here we have native extensions. So if I click on that, I've heard that people have had issues with ANEs in Flash Builder, but when I've worked with them with Flash Builder, they've seemed to be okay. But anyway, you say, all right, cool, I'm going to add an ANE, so then you point to an ANE file, and it parses through that file and stuff, and you're good to go, you're off to the races. And you update the application descriptor. And what they mean by that is any of your mobile apps are going to have an accompanying application descriptor file. And it's an XML file that just calls out a number of settings, such as the application's ID, the version of the application, and then platform-specific settings, such as the iOS, support Retina setting, or Android permission settings for I want to enable internet access. So with an ANE, you need to actually specify that you're using an ANE or multiple ANEs inside your descriptor. So yeah, so when I add the ANE, I do want it to update my error descriptor. So another convenience feature. So I'm going to go through and it's going to create my project for me. Good. All right, so here's my application, and I'm going to modify text, make it a little bit larger, and basic text, and we'll go with, how many of you are on Windows? Windows. How many of you are on Mac? Most of you. Anybody on Linux? No Linux. Linux is for servers, right? Okay, so what I was going to say is, I forgot to put it in the slides. All 3 of these IDEs support a 64-bit version. As of Flash Builder 4.7, it became 64-bit. So if that's a consideration, that's good. The other thing is they all run on Windows or Mac. So you don't need to worry about, oh, well, I'm on Windows, I can't use that. No, they work both. So. All right, so I have my application, and I'm going to basically just add, like, say, a button. And so when we're in here, you guys are familiar with this since you're using Flash Builder. We have all this code hinting. And we'll say label. And I'm going to say click me. Okay, and then I'm going to have a click handler. And here's, so we have code hinting, we have code generation in Flash Builder, which is cool. Granted, I don't really like how it names functions and stuff for me, so I usually try and modify that. But the nice thing is when the code generation throws the code down, you can see like there's these, rectangles, and what you can do is you can actually tab through them to modify things. So for instance, I tab to the access modifier, because I like to have my handlers private. Okay? And then you can just kind of tab through. And this is kind of a cool convenience factor. I'm going to on click me event. Maybe I just want to make it a generic. Like for instance, this event listener needs to be able to handle button click, but it also needs to be able to handle some system event. So maybe I'll just like cast it as a generic event. But I'm not going to do that right now. And then finally, you can escape, and that gets you out of that whole like helping hands mode. Now the thing is the awesome thing is we talked about like templates, so like file templates and also code templates. So in Flash Builder, how many of you have used this particular area of Flash Builder? Okay. So for those of you that are using Flash Builder and you haven't, it's good to know about. So if I go in here, I have the ability to go to Flash Builder settings, and then I can go in here and basically I have content assist, so I can modify like the assist stuff. Like, hey, how are you going to cycle through the assist? And I can organize imports, so that's pretty cool. And then in here I have code templates. So if I have like, say for instance, a function, I can go in here and I can actually edit how it's going to throw a function down for me. So that's really cool, because not only that, if you notice, we have import and export. And my team is actually, we have a bunch of templates that we all share. That way when we use the code hinting and stuff and the code assist, bam, it's there and it's formatted the way we need it. So that's cool. In addition to doing the code templates though, we also have the ability to have XML templates. So for a declarative piece, so like, yeah, maybe I have a specific way I want the list to be thrown down. And then, in addition to code templates, we have file templates. So file templates, hey, I want my MXML application to look like this when it first hits the stage of my text editor. So that's really powerful. And the cool thing about it is you can import and export. So we have like a little tiny Git repo where we have our templates, and whenever they get updated, you can pull them down and import them into Flash. So that's cool. So I have my click me. I'm going to just say trace hello world. Oops. Save that. Run debug. Okay. I want to test to make sure this happens. And one thing that I don't know about, I forgot to turn in that. Yeah, this is also useful, right? So the IDE is compiling in the background and saying, you forgot to close your button. So it gives me some hints so that I know that, oh yeah, okay. And it's building the workspace. You can see that down there. Okay, so now we're going to run debug. What I was going to say is, I don't know why these IDEs don't have line numbers turned on by default. And same thing with IntelliJ. So I'm going to show line numbers. And here we go. There. I set a breakpoint. So we're talking about step debuggers earlier. So step debuggers will listen for breakpoints, and when it hears the breakpoint, it's going to suspend the application right before that line of code executes and allow you to introspect what's happening at that point in time. So in Flash Builder, I can go to the bug, or I could go to the play button. So play is run. I just want to run the application, make sure it looks right, I can interact with it. I don't need to look at the variable values and stuff like that. Or actually, I want to debug it. I want to see what's going on. So I can go into my configurations, and I go into mobile application, and I create a new one. And this is where we get some of these run debug settings. So I'm going to target iOS. No, I'm actually going to target Android. And then you can say, all right, where am I going to do this? Am I going to do this in the ADL? Or am I going to do this directly on the device? If I do the ADL, I have the ability to choose from a list of devices. Granted, this hasn't been updated for a long time. But the good thing is that we can actually configure and we can create new devices. So that's pretty cool. We just need the information on density and resolution of the device. So I'm going to go with Air Simulator. I'm going to go with the tried and true Google Nexus 1. You can also specify to clear the application data on each launch. And then we're off to the races. Click. Okay, it's telling me, hey, I just hit a breakpoint. All right, cool. That's good to know. So then now we have the debugger. So we have the ability first, over here on the left, top left, to look at the call snap. How did I get here? You know, and what I'm looking at right now that's highlighted is the most recent call that happened. But I can go further down into this and see what's going on. And see over here on the right the state of the variables in that scope. So right now I'm in underscore hello FB underscore button underscore click. Okay, cool. So I'm looking at the variables. I can also go to my breakpoints view and like enable disable breakpoints. And then the cool thing is I can also add expressions. So if I wanted to say, oh well, what is it? Event. Yeah. So I can go in here and I can say, all right, I want to keep a track of the event because I want to see what data type that event is. Is it mouse event? Whatever. So this is powerful. And then up here I can like navigate around. So if I go back, I can navigate. I just executed that trace, and as I did, you can see down in the console that the trace statement there. That's cool. That's powerful. So now I want to look at some more of the mobile settings here. So in the project, right-click that, and I can look at the properties. And we have what's called Flex Build Packaging. So these are for the device settings. So we have iOS and we have Android. And these are platform-specific settings. As an iOS developer, which Owen is going to talk about later today, I have the ability to specify a certificate file, a key store, and a provisioning file that says, hey, your iPad is allowed to run this debug IDA because it's in the provisioning file. Or, sorry, it's not going to work. So, and then the other thing is I can tell it on this platform, what do I want to package with my application? Because you may have different, images and skins based on the platform you're running on. So you can specify the folders of contents outside of your code to put onto the device. And with there we have entitlements, but this has been useful. I think they were planning to do this and then they stopped working on it. Entitlements basically is stuff for iOS development. One could probably tell you later, but for instance, I was having issues with my developer certificate and my provisioning file and my iPad a couple nights ago, and it turned out that I needed to add an entitlements block to my iOS properties in my app script. So they can be important at times.
Yes,
yeah?
I'm using 4.7 on Windows. There's no entitlements tab.
There's no entitlements tab on Windows? Ooh. Yay! I'm on Mac. Look at that.
They forgot to remove this on the Mac website.
Interesting. And then native extensions. This is where I can set up additional IDEs. And the nice thing about Flash Builder is ANEs don't necessarily support every platform. So some developer may only know Android development outside of Air. So they'll build an ANE that works on an Android phone, but it's not going to work on the ADL. So sometimes when you ingest an ANE, you may not be able to launch your application on your ADL on your desktop or your laptop. So the nice thing about Flash Builder is once you add an ANE in, it will tell you what platforms are supported. Android, the Android specific settings in here, other than, we can do the code sign search, say this is safe. Or we can give it permissions. This is another thing where I think they're planning on doing that. I wonder if that's on Windows. No. Anyway. Okay, and then I can also enable and disable a platform. So yeah, I want to disable Apple or whatever. So that's cool. So that application descriptor file like I'm talking about is this file right here. And where we have to worry about it is for Apple, we really need to worry about the ID. Because when you set up your stuff, which Joel is going to show you later today, you create what's called an app ID. And the start of this needs to match that if you're using a while. Otherwise, all of it needs to match it if you have a specific app ID. So this is very important for Apple. The other thing too is if you're using like iTunes to sync over your application version number, incrementing is helpful. Otherwise, iTunes gets confused. And then finally, down at the bottom, we have the iPhone area, and I'm just going to scroll. The Android area, and this is where you set up Android settings. So for instance, by default, we can use the internet when the app runs, but we can't use phone state, reading phone state, or camera. So that's where you go modify that. And then iPhone. So we have the iPhone block here as well. If you want to add a title search, you would add it to that. And then finally, we can go in here and we can export our builds. And we can say where the targets are, and we can specify how we're sliding stuff. So that's kind of Flash Builder in a nutshell. I have like 12 minutes left, so let's take a really close look at IntelliJ. If we have time, we can look at FTT if you're interested, but I'm telling you that FTT is pretty similar to Flash Builder. It's actually got a lot of additional features that Flash Builder doesn't have, but it's also an Eclipse-based IDE. No, I have FTT installed, it's just the free version. So here's FTT, if you're interested. The one thing I noticed about FTT that's different with mobile apps is if I say new project, I actually have to specify Android or desktop. So it won't let me like create a project that works all of them. We probably have that. Why do I not prefer it? Because I haven't used it. That's the honest answer on FTT. Yeah, I really focused my time on IntelliJ because I knew it was a lot different. FTT though, this is something to keep in mind. The other thing is it's a subscription-based model. I don't really like that. So that's another reason why it kind of took the third chair. They are. So how many of you are thinking of doing Flex.js development? Number of you? All right, so here's the breakdown. FTT, as of the latest release, it's officially supported, Flex.js. IntelliJ, it's in the early access program, it's supported. So it will be supported soon. Flash Builder, you gotta do things better. So you can get it to work, but you gotta like set up external building tools and stuff like that to get it to work with Flash Builder. Obviously, because they're not working on Flash Builder, and Flex.js is newer than Flash Builder. Before I go into IntelliJ though, we'll just take a really quick look at the versions. And there's a good version chart here on this link. So all three of the IDEs have a profiler in addition to the debugger. But I'm telling you this, if you have Scout, use Scout. Scout's awesome. Okay, but if profiler is important to you, all three of the IDEs have it. If you buy FTT, you get some really cool features. So if you want to do Air for desktop, BlackBerry, Android, and iOS, we have limited support with the free version, but with the max version, it's fully supported. Building and launching, like we have a lot of really cool features in here for FTT as well. It's like version control support, Ant tasks. You use Ant, Ant's awesome. Yeah. Go Ant. And then app wrap integration. That was some weird tool that one of the, it wasn't weird, it was awesome actually. I thought it was weird because I didn't really understand it. And then in FTT we also have coding tools. So like templates, which we saw in Flash Builder, you know, we have like jump to resource project tasks to do in FixMe's. The funniest thing about Flash Builder that's always been annoying is it doesn't natively have to do FixMe support built in. Even though Eclipse has that. And I think it's because that's part of the Java plugin that came into Eclipse, and it's not based on that. So there was this one guy that built an Eclipse plugin to do FixMe for Flash Builder, and as of the last version, I think it still works. But you always have to add it in as one of your plugins. Code formatting. So you can go to this link. When I upload the slides, I'll have links to all these pages. But it's really powerful, FTT. I just don't like the pricing model. I really don't. Yes?
It looks like the free version, you can do just about everything you want. What's the...
Mostly.
Why wouldn't you use the free one?
So with the free one though, like in here, you can use the free one, but all right, so we got limited code formatting, change function. There's some really specific reasons why I haven't looked into using free ones. Multiple source folders aren't available. Oftentimes I need to create multiple source folders. Linking of external SWIFTs, that's pretty important. So there's a lot of core features that aren't really available in the free version that, you know. So if you don't need those, feel free to play around with the free version.
By the way, the free version of FTP works with Flex.js.
The free version does? Awesome. So if you want to be a Flex.js developer, then you may want to look at the free version. I'm not a Flex.js developer. I'm an actual Air Flex developer. You know, I want to look into Flex.js, but I don't have business needs to at this moment. So anyway.
Say hacks.
Oh, yeah, Hacks is a different programming language that runs on a different runtime, right? Hacks.
I think you can publish to various formats, Swift or even C++.
And Unity as well, right? Yeah, so it's a different programming language. And as Holmes said, Hacks will output to different output formats. So yeah, FTT does have Hacks. But we're at 360 Flex, we're not at 360 Hacks. So yeah, so anyway, being that I have 5 to 10 minutes, let's look at IntelliJ before I start. You guys cool on FTT? Yeah. So the main concept that you wrap your head around with IntelliJ is that it's not Eclipse-based. And the way that you think about projects in IntelliJ is different. And what I mean by that is I don't want to load this project. I want to go this project for now. I want to go to the start page. So this is what you first see. Just like Eclipse, you have the ability to load plugins and you can import and export projects, but this is kind of wonky. Like it'll let you import an FXP package, but I can't just point to some source code and import it. But what I can do is I can say new project. So with Flash Builder and FTT, we have what's called Workspace. And that's where you bundle all your projects into. With IntelliJ, you have project. Project in IntelliJ is synonymous with workspace in FTT and Flash Builder. So what is a project? We'll see. So I'm creating a new project, i.e. workspace. I'm going to start with empty for now. And we'll see why. It's going to be hello IntelliJ. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to finish this. Now, if I just say, okay, I'm going to have an empty project, i.e. workspace. I create a module. So in IntelliJ, your project your mobile project or your library project is a mobile module or library module. So once you can kind of get past that, IntelliJ becomes a lot easier to think about and use. So I'm going to create a new module. And this new module is going to target mobile. It's going to be application. So if I wanted to create a library, I could. I'm going to create an application. And then I can target devices. Unlike FTT, I can target multiple devices with one project. We also have that multiple SDK support that we had in Flash Builder. So I could actually add like another SDK if I wanted to. And then I can create a sample app just like I did in Flash Builder. Hello, IntelliJ. And click next. Create the module. So module is like Flash Builder project. So hello, IntelliJ. So now I have my project. And right here I have quick access to my project settings. So right now it's erroring on main class because I haven't actually created this module yet. So let's just go ahead and click OK and come back to these settings. So with Flash Builder, remember we have that screen where we could say application, view navigator application, and tab view navigator application? IntelliJ doesn't give you that option. It just like throws that down, view navigator application. And the format is kind of annoying. So I can go in here now. Here's my, So my project is like my workspace, and here's my module, which is actually my mobile project. If I right-click on the module, I can say Open Module Settings. And in here, I go there, and I can see the settings again, and now it's not complaining about the main class, it's actually created the file. The output folder is different. So with Flash Builder, output folder is bin or bin debug. With IntelliJ, it goes into the project directory, out, production, and then module name. So that's a little bit different. Then dependencies. This is actually where you can add your Swift dependencies or your project dependencies. So if I have like,
it's just one.
oh, okay. So we got this going on here. We have compiler options. So you know, if I need to put in a new locale or something to that extent, or add the advanced telemetry, I can do that over here. And then Android, this is the mobile settings. And if you notice, unlike Flash Builder right off the bat creates your application descriptor file. IntelliJ does not. It generates one, like on its own. But I need to go in there and modify it. So I can create a custom template for the application descriptor. And I say create. And from there, I have the ability to go in here and specify a file name for my descriptor. I can say what error version I'm targeting. Give it an app ID, etc., and specify these properties. So for now, I'm just going to use, I'll create a new one. I'll just go with defaults. In Flash Builder, if I wanted to point to a folder of images to use and bundle with my application, I have that area to do that. Here is where you do that. So I can say, hey, yeah, I want to bundle, like, say I had an assets folder in here. I want to bundle that with my application. And then this is where I specify my certificates. So, yeah, I want to sign my application. For iOS, it looks very similar, but I have the ability to add a provisioning profile, keystroke profile, iOS SDK, or ADT. So I'm going to disable iOS for now. So now, now that I have the module configured, I need to look at my run debug settings. So those are actually available here. I can say edit configuration. And from there, I have my run debug configs. And just like Flash Builder, I have the ability to select from a number of devices, and I have the ability to add my own. So I can go in here and do that. I can launch it directly on my Android phone, or I can launch it on my iPad, and I can say whether or not I want to do fast packaging. So this is where your launch settings are. Okay, and then once I'm in the code, I can go in here and start typing stuff. And it also has, code hinting. It seems a little bit laggy at times, but it has it. So it's mad because I'm not typing well because I know I'm in a hurry because I'm out of time. So we have code hinting. The difference with IntelliJ though is by default, like it's not really showing me much as far as helpful hints. So we're gonna stick with that for now. If I go into preferences, I can actually go in here and look for templates. So we have our file and code templates. The thing to notice is we have our Flex 4 template here, so we can get it to change the way that it's thrown down. And then we also have ActionScript class templates as well. So we can go in here and modify, we can add our own templates as well. So if I want to create a specific kind of file, I can do that. And where this applies, so let me just exit out of here real quick. If I go to my source directory and say new file, oops, sorry, source directory and say MXML component, see, I have the ability, if I create my own, I can hit this drop down and use a specific template. So that's really cool. And then the other thing is in the settings, we also have editor settings or ActionScript. So we have code styles. So we have schemes. So this is where we can really, really tweak the settings for how our ActionScript looks. And then if you notice though, I don't really have the MXML settings. So that's one big difference, is with Flash Builder we have the ability to do a bunch of MXML by default. What I do with IntelliJ is I actually look at XML and utilize that. But it's not 100% like awesome. It's okay. So that's one big bonus to Flash Builder is, you know, they're built with MXML support right off the bat. And so there's a lot of features in IntelliJ that are similar to Flash Builder, but it's kind of a different world. And if I had more time, I'd continue talking. But if not, feel free to come by and we can look at IntelliJ together. If you'd be curious, I have some actual projects that you can look at. Oh, and then it does have a step debugger. Let me just throw something down real quick and change this. Are you okay sitting in here a couple more minutes? We're eating lunch. And if you want to go get your lunch, I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. It's cool. Seriously. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to do the same thing that I did in Flash Builder. So I'm going to have a button. So I have code hinting, so I want to type button. And I didn't give it an ID, I just gave it a label. And I say click me. And then I'm going to say event, or click. And here, I'm like, One cool thing is there's a keyboard shortcut I can use, and there's a lot of cool like refactoring tools in here. There's also a generate. This is worth looking at IntelliJ for. So between the refactoring tools and the code generation, it's like world class. And in Flash Builder, you can generate an event handler, maybe getter and setter, but even with getter and setter, check this out. Like with IntelliJ, if I go, let me create a file, a new ActionScript class, test. This is a really cool part of IntelliJ. Let me just terminate this stuff so it doesn't complain to me. In here, that's a hit N. So if I go to getter and setter, it didn't find a field, so all right, fine. So private var test var string. This is something that you don't get with Flash Builder. And so like if I had multiple vars, it'd like expand and I can select them. All right, so if I was in an event dispatcher class, it would actually tell me, do we want to create a custom event? Do we want to create a custom event constant? It's really cool. So like here, I think I could do that real quick and then probably have to wrap up. But, extends, event dispatcher. Okay. So now, See that? It's awesome. So I can tell it, oh yeah, this property changed, and I can even create an event constant. Bam. Dude, isn't that cool? That's really, really cool. And the other thing too is if we look into refactoring in Flash Builder, it's okay, but it's pretty basic. Look at all these other refactoring options I have. Remember SourceMate for Flash Builder, anybody? Or is it SourceMate or, yeah, it's SourceMate.
Yeah, SourceMate.
It was a plugin that did this kind of stuff. The third party had to build a plugin to add these features to Flash Builder. With IntelliJ, you've got a lot of those SourceMate features right off the bat from buying the IDE. We have some analysis. Yes?
You can do that in Flash Builder too.
Do what?
The event dispatching thing and the bilevel thing.
Can you?
Yes.
I haven't found that. So this gentleman actually showed me some other cool things yesterday. Like for instance, when I run, I was all mad because if I ran my app in the ADL, and then I tried to run it again, if it was open in the ADL, it wouldn't close the initial instance. Well, you found this guy here, single instance only. So that'll behave like Flash Builder. So the fact that I found all these things a lot easier, they have a better user experience, I guess. And then finally in code, here's a lot of really cool stuff I can do with code. So like I can reformat code, you know, rearrange code. One thing I noticed too is like if I go in here and say I have stuff like that, and I go in here and I say like, you know, this. One thing I noticed, and I can't get it to happen right now, this. No. So it might just be an MXML, but what I've noticed is that when you have a script and you hit the dot in IntelliJ, it'll actually go through and like push a bunch of your code over to the side. Like it does some automatic code formatting that you'll have to go into the settings and turn. So in closing, Flash Builder is awesome. I don't have any native extension dialogues in IntelliJ, so you got to do it manually there, unlike Flash Builder. But if you're really looking for like, you know, code hinting and like templates and stuff like that, IntelliJ is really worth looking at. And IntelliJ is continuing to be supported, unlike Flash Builder. As far as FTT, it's got a lot of features, but the problem with FTT is the subscription model. Once they moved to that, I kind of lost interest. But if you're good with the free and you want to do Flex.js, you might want to look at FTT. Long story short is play around with them, pick your poison, dependent on your use case, but all of them are pretty robust and much better than using Sublime Text or VI. That's it. Hit me up if you have questions.